It was supposed to be an ordinary night, a cozy dinner party at Fran Drescher's Los Angeles home, filled with laughter and wedding plans. She and her husband, Peter, alongside their friend Judy, were dreaming up a future bright with promise. The air buzzed with the warmth of friendship, until it shattered. A deafening bang ripped through the house, and two masked intruders stormed in, guns gleaming like cold death in their hands. Fran's voice, that unmistakable nasal lilt, erupted in a primal scream, a sound so raw, so visceral, it seemed every cell in her body wailed in unison. It was literal horror, she'd later recall, the echo of that cry haunting her still. The invaders herded them upstairs, their boots thudding against the floor like a drumbeat of doom. Fran's wrists burned as ropes bit into her skin, binding her tight. A gun pressed against her temple, its metal chill a whispered promise of oblivion. This is it, she thought, her mind racing through the life she'd known, the one she'd thought was hers forever. Peter and Judy were gagged, their muffled cries swallowed by the suffocating silence, but Fran's voice remained unbound. She spoke to the monster holding her life in his hands, her words a lifeline, a desperate thread of connection. And in that nightmare, she did something extraordinary. She memorized his face. Every line, every shadow, etched into her mind with the precision of a survivor's instinct. The assault that followed was a violation beyond words. Fran was raped, her body turned into a battlefield, while Peter and Judy were forced to bear witness, helpless under the weight of their own terror. I didn't know if we'd come out alive, she'd confess later, her voice trembling with the memory of wondering who'd die first, and who'd have to watch. When the predators finally fled, they left behind a shattered home and 3 fractured souls. Fran's best friend called later, hearing her sobs through the phone. 2 men broke in. They raped me. They held Judy at gunpoint and made Peter watch. The confession hung heavy, a wound laid bare. In the aftermath, Fran buried the pain deep, locking it away like a secret she hoped would fade. She thought no one would ever know what happened that night in 1985. Life marched on, and with Peter she built a glittering empire. They'd met as teenagers, her climbing the stairs, him descending, a simple hello sparking a love that felt eternal. By 21, they were married, partners in everything, dreaming up a sitcom inspired by their idols, Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. That dream became The Nanny, a cultural juggernaut born from their shared vision. We caught lightning in a bottle, Fran would say, basking in the glow of success as the show outshone Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. The world saw her as a comedic queen, her signature laugh a beacon of joy. People say, "Oh, I wish I had your life," she'd quip, a wry smile masking the shadows within. Be careful what you wish for. But the past doesn't stay buried. A decade later, the tabloids clawed it back into the light. A headline screamed her trauma to the world. Fran Drescher, raped. The media dug further, tracking down her rapist in prison, splashing his words across screens and pages. It was terrible, she said, the reopened wound slicing through her hard-won peace. Post-traumatic stress crashed over her like a tidal wave, dragging her back to that night. Worse still, a paparazzo camped outside her home, snapping photos that mapped her street for all to see. A twice-convicted sex offender took the bait, stalking her, a predator drawn by the scent of her vulnerability. I'm in trouble, she told a friend, fear tightening her throat. Yet Fran's spirit refused to break. That photographic memory, honed in the crucible of terror, became her weapon. She'd watched a TV segment just days before the attack, urging victims to note details. That advice burned in her mind as she studied her rapist's face, later guiding police to sketch his likeness with chilling accuracy. When they nabbed him, his pockets bulged with stolen jewelry, his fly unzipped. A monster halted mid-rampage. He got 114 years, she'd say, a faint triumph in her tone. There were busloads of witnesses, brothers, working together. Her clarity had saved countless others, a silver lining forged in the fire of her pain. But the scars lingered. Her marriage to Peter unraveled under the strain. He withdrew, haunted by what he'd seen, while Fran armored herself in control, dictating his every move, her own emotions shoved aside. I was Superwoman, she'd admit, until she couldn't be. They separated during the nanny's final years, their love buckling beneath unspoken grief. Then came another blow. Cancer. After 2 years and 8 doctors, the diagnosis landed like a thunderclap: uterine cancer. A radical hysterectomy saved her life, but carved away her dreams of motherhood, leaving her staring at a bruised, scarred reflection. I felt betrayed by my body. She wept, pounding her boyfriend's chest in despair. I'm never going to be what I was. Recovery was a slow crawl, her parents hovering as she battled pain no one could see. One day, as they gathered for lunch, her cousin Susan began choking, a piece of chicken lodged in her throat. Fran, stitches still fresh, leapt up, ignoring her mother's frantic cry, "Don't rip your stitches!" and performed the Heimlich. A tiny morsel flew free, and Susan gasped, "Fran, you saved my life." In that moment, something shifted. She saved mine, too, Fran realized, a spark of her old fire reigniting. From the ashes of her trials, Fran forged a new purpose. She refused to let this pain fester like the last. I'm a survivor, she declared, speaking candidly about the rape, the cancer, the stalking, stripping the curse from her story by sharing it. When Peter learned of her diagnosis, his anger melted, their love reborn as friendship. He came out as gay, and together they redefined their bond, stronger for its honesty. I turned negatives into positives, she'd say, her voice a clarion call. Her mission crystallized: to transform pain into power, to show others that survival is possible. Fran Drescher, assaulted, betrayed, battered, rose unstoppable. Think about how many people you saved, a friend marveled. Through the veil of PTSD, she built a life of meaning, her laughter a defiant hymn. Pain will find its way out, she warned, so turn it into purpose. And so she has. A force of nature who proves that even in the darkest nights, dawn can break. As I sit here, the weight of my sadness feels like a cold, endless winter pressing down on me. I can still hear the echo of that night, the crash, the screams, the way my world unraveled in an instant. It's not just the violence that lingers, it's the betrayal of my own body, the cancer that stole pieces of me I'll never get back, and the love that slipped through my fingers when I needed it most. There are days when I look in the mirror and don't recognize the woman staring back, scarred, tired, hollowed out by grief. I've lost so much. My sense of safety, my dreams of a family, the marriage I thought would last forever. The silence after Peter left was deafening, and the diagnosis that followed felt like the universe kicking me when I was already down. I'd lie awake, wondering why life kept piling on more than I could carry. But here's the thing. I'm still here. And if you're reading this, feeling that same ache in your chest, I want you to know you're not alone. Sadness like this, it's a beast, eh? It claws at you, tries to convince you the light's gone for good, but I've learned it's not about erasing the pain. It's about sitting with it, letting it wash over you, and then finding the strength to stand up anyway. I think about that day with Susan, choking at the table, and how even with stitches screaming in my side, I moved. I fought. That's what resilience looks like. Not the absence of hurt, but the choice to keep going through it. To anyone out there drowning in your own dark, hold on. You don't have to be Superwoman or Superman. Just be you, broken and all. I pushed my feelings down for years, thinking I could outrun them, but they caught up. Now, I let myself cry, scream, heal. And bit by bit, I've turned that sorrow into something fierce, a purpose to help others see they can survive too. We're tougher than we know, even when the nights feel endless. I've told you my story, or Fran's, really, and now I'm asking you to look at her, truly see her. She's not just the gal with the big laugh from the nanny, eh? She's a fighter who's walked through hell and come out swinging. I'm begging you to love her for it, not pity her, but cherish her. She's been knocked down by violence, cancer, heartbreak, and still, she's got this fire that warms everyone around her. That's worth honoring. When I think of her staring down that gun, memorizing her attacker's face to save others, or choking back tears to save her cousin Susan, I see a hero. Not a perfect one, but a real one. So please show her some of that Canadian kindness we're known for. Imagine the weight she's carried. Rape, betrayal, a body that turned against her, and then picture her choosing to stand tall anyway. That's guts, pure and simple. Empathize with her, eh? Put yourself in her shoes for a minute. The terror, the loss, the quiet moments when she wondered if she'd ever feel whole again. Then celebrate her for rising above it. She's not asking for a parade, but she deserves our respect, our cheers, our love. Let's lift her up, not just for what she's survived, but for how she's turned it into a beacon for the rest of us. Fran's a reminder. We're all stronger than we think, and we're better when we hold each other close. Sometimes the sadness creeps in so quiet, like a fog rolling over the prairies, and it's all about family, or what I thought it'd be. I look back at Peter and me, two kids who met at 15 saying hello like it was fate. We built a life, a show, a dream. The nanny was our baby, but I wanted real ones, you know? Little Brightons and Graces running around calling me Mom. That never happened. The cancer took that from me, carved it out with a hysterectomy that left a cruel red scar across my belly. I'd stare at it, swollen and bruised, and weep for the kids I'd never hold. My body betrayed me, and that ache, it's a hollow I can't fill, no matter how loud I laugh on TV. Then there's Peter, my husband, my rock, until he wasn't. That night, the rape, broke us in ways we couldn't fix. He watched, helpless, and it haunted him. I tried to be strong, but I controlled everything. His clothes, his words, till he couldn't breathe. When we split, I felt like I'd failed him, failed us. I'd dreamed of growing old together, like my grandparents back in Queens, but instead, I was alone, staring at an empty house. Even after he came out as gay, I mourned the family we'd never be. We're friends now, but that loss lingers, a quiet grief for the life I'd pictured. Health's another ghost. Cancer hit when I was already down, and I'd lie there, weak, wondering why my body kept turning on me. It's not just the pain, it's the fear it stole my future. Childhood wasn't all roses either. Money was tight, and I learned early to hustle. But this sadness, it's the family I never got to keep that cuts deepest. Still, I'm here, fighting through it, hoping my story helps someone else hold on.